Hey guys, in this DIY Squishmallow tutorial, I'm going to show you how I made these cat Squishmallows. You can make so many different versions with the pattern. Like for example, here I have the Citrus Squishmallow, and the one before had all the flowers on top. And look at this one, just so cute with these different patterns and just so soft and squishy. I love them. And how cute are these tails? So go ahead and download the printable pattern and tape it together, and let's go. Let's make them. So once you tape together the pattern for the body, it looks like this. This is the basic Squishmallow cat body that you're going to use for any variation of Squishmallow that you want to make. And then the fun part are all the extras here. These don't have to be taped together, and this is great because you get so many different things. Like you have all the different face details, different tails, like a raccoon tail, a regular cat tail. You have so many different ear versions. You have leaves and cat spots and just everything. Even the citrus pieces for the cats here and cat stripes and so many different things. You can even make a raccoon or a koala bear or even a mouse. The first Squishmallow I'm going to show you how to make is the citrus cat. And for this one, you're going to need the front body piece, the back body piece, and even the bottom piece. You're actually not going to need the belly for this one, so don't cut it out along the dash line, just like the pattern shows you. And I like to add all my extras in one of these plastic sleeves. So I'm using this orange fleece, and I'm going to make sure it stretches most up and down. And I'm going to place it down here, and I'm going to cut around. And for this one, you're going to need two pieces. So you can cut it doubled up where right sides of the fabric are touching and cut it that way. Or you can cut one this way and flip it over and cut the other one that way. And so now I'm going to go ahead and just cut everything out. I'm going to use my pattern weights and cut around. Of course, you can definitely pin it down if you prefer that way. Loving this DIY Squishmallow tutorial? Why don't you subscribe so you could stay up to date with all my latest videos and get that notification? Anyway, just click on the top right link there and subscribe. And don't forget to cut these little slits here because that is a marking spot as to where we're going to match it on the bottom of the Squishmallow. So here are the pieces. I have the front body, the two back pieces, and the bottom piece. So now I'm going to make the ears, and I'm going to make the two-tone version. So here's what the front of the ear looks like completed. And I'm going to sew them right sides together and flip them out. So here's how I did it. I pinned these two together, just like I'm showing you here. I first like to match the corners at the bottom, and I just add a few pins, not too many. And I make sure the peak on top matches as well. And now I'm going to sew all the way around, back stitching on the ends. And I am going to actually sew a bit close to the edge of the fabric. Sorry for the little wobbling there of the camera. And I definitely moved the pins out of the way if they seem to be getting in the way. And I'm careful. I'm doing some slow sewing. Well, this is slow for me. Anyway, I'm going slow because I want to make sure I don't catch the yellow one under, or it folds in a way that it shouldn't and it messes up the front of the ear. And that's what the completed ear looks like. So this is how I did it. Right sides together, pin it together. And once it's pinned, what I did was I sewed all the way around. Back stitching on the ends. Of course, I leave the bottom open. Next, I sewed the darts closed on the back body pieces. And here's how to place the ear on the front body. Right on the open dart there, you're going to take the right end of the ear, or the right edge, and I'm going to place it right up to the edge of the dart. On the other Squishmallow, I'm going to do it a little differently, but this is how you do it. You just lay it there and fold it over, pin it in place. And then I'm going to go right over to my sewing machine and sew right over that with back stitching on the ends. And that's what the ears look like. So from this point on, I'm not going to go back to my sewing machine with the camera because I've created these Squishmallow tutorials several times in the past. And if you want me to go slower or you want to watch a slower version, definitely click on the link right here on the upper right hand corner and you can watch the same exact pattern being put together with me walking you step by step slowly and just explaining each point if you need that. And with the back of the Squishmallow sewn together, I'm going to place them right sides together. But before I sew them together, I'm going to create the stem and the leaf. And I'm just using plain felt here. And I like to use a chopstick to help me turn the stem right side out. And with the stem and leaf sewn, what I'm going to do is I'm going to place them right here upside down because I want them to look like that, so you have to flip them the opposite way. It may not make sense at first if this is your first time making a Squishmallow, but trust me, after you sew the back on with the stem and the leaf pointing this way, it'll totally make sense when you turn it right side out. Now I'm going to match that top seam there with the very top of the Squishmallow, or actually it's like the center seam. And I'm matching them together there and I'm pinning. And as I pin, I'm going to make sure that the ear here lies flat. But before I do that, I like to get my corners first. I like to pin both corners and then the curves, I make them fit. Make sure that ear lies flat just like this and lay the back right over it. And now I'm going to sew all the way around, back stitching on the ends, and of course leaving the bottom open. And there we go, that was quick. I used about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, and it's looking so cute. Look at this, adorable. So I'm going to turn it back right sides, or I'm sorry, wrong sides out, and I'm going to attach the bottom. So the slit here on the sides, I'm going to match with the side seam right there. And I like to match both of the seams together first before I keep going and pinning the rest of the curve bottom. And you'll see what I mean. And now with the bottom pinned in place, I'm going to sew all the way around, and I'm going to use the back darts as my opening points there. I'm going to leave that part open, back stitching at the darts. And now I'm going to turn it right side out, and all it needs is some stuffing. Well, I know it needs a face, but you know what I mean. Now that I got it stuffed to a nice squishy point, I am going to use a double threaded needle to close this together. Now, because I used fleece, this is great because the fleece is so forgiving. I don't even need to do a blind stitch. I could do a regular overcast stitch here and you won't even see the thread. When I get to the end of my stitching, I do an end off stitch there, hide my thread in the stuffing and trim. So now I'm going to create the face with some felt. Citrus triangle pieces, I actually use fleece because it doesn't fray at the ends and it actually worked out. So I'm going to hand sew all of the face details on. So here's how I'm going to sew on all of the details. This is sort of like an overcast stitch. I start from the back, so I hide my double knot back there, and I keep going. I grab a little bit of the orange fleece right into the yellow fleece, and it attaches both of them together. Another stitch I like to use is the back stitch. You go forward, and before you continue forward, you go back into that last point. If you could see what I'm doing there, it's actually pretty easy. And it sort of gives you a stitch line that is smooth without any spaces in between. And when I'm about to run out of thread, I do an end off stitch behind and I rethread my needle and I continue sewing. And with that same back stitch, I'm going to sew all of the eyes and nose and all these details on the same exact way. And with the same back stitch, that is how I'm going to embroider the mouth detail here for this Squishmallow. And that's it. That's how I made my Squishmallow Citrus cat. And now I'm going to show you how I made the spotted cat with this adorable print. So I cut out the ear pieces. Everything is already cut out here. I did the front spot, the two front spots. I actually forgot the back spot. So definitely don't forget yours if you're making that one. And I cut out the two back pieces. And the steps are exactly the same. But since I am not using felts for my spots and I'm using fabric, I'm going to fold down a little hem around the edges of the spot. That's not going to be sandwiched into the seam, and I'll show you what I mean. And I'm going to go over to my sewing machine now and just give them a quick stitch right at the edge just to hold down the seam. So now I'm going to place them and actually pin them in place. So as you can see here, the edges of the spot that I've sewn are the edges that are going to be on the front of the Squishmallow. The other edges of the spots that I didn't sew, they're going to be on the inside of the Squishmallow. That's why I didn't sew those or make a hem. So what I did was I used a decorative stitch, and I think that came out really nice in order to attach the spots. And now I'm just going to cut out this dart so I could fit the ear in there. And now I'm going to make the tail with the right sides together. I'm just going to sew all the way around the tail, back stitching on the ends. And then I'm going to flip it around, just like I am now with my trusty chopstick. Here it is. And now that my darts are sewn together, I always double check where the back of the Squishmallow pieces and the side before I place the tail in, because you want to make sure you place it on the back side. So I want my tail to stick out like that, so I'm going to flip it the opposite way, just like we did with the citrus stem and leaf. And then I'm going to place the other back right over it, right sides together, and I'm going to start by pinning the corner together. And now I'm going to sew with about 1/4 of an inch seam allowance, back stitching on the ends, and there's that adorable tail. Going to sew the ears on the same exact way I did the other Squishmallow, but this time I'm not going to bring the edge of the ear all the way to the edge of the dart, and I'm going to just pull it back just a little. And now I'm going to attach the back of the Squishmallow to the front just like I did the other one. Same exact process. I start by matching the tops and then making sure the ear lays flat. I'm going to just put a pin there. You want to make sure it lays flat because you don't want to pick out the stitches after you've sewn, because that's annoying. And of course, before I continue doing the curve, I like to get the corners in. And with the same sewing method, I'm going to attach the bottom of the Squishmallow the same way. And this spotted Squishmallow cat actually came out adorable. Okay, so now I'm going to show you how to make this Squishmallow with a belly and these adorable flowers. So you need the Squishmallow front body with the belly cut out and the belly piece as well cut out. So I cut out my 4 ears, my 2 tail pieces, ooh, that's on the side, my bottom piece my back body 2 pieces. I actually have them right sides together, and there's my tail, 2 pieces. And I'm also going to add some stripes, so I cut out a few of those out of white fleece because I happen to have that. Okay, so it's important that you make this little slip mark there because that is a marking point, and that is where I'm going to attach my belly. I'm actually just going to add another one on the belly here. Now I'm going through this a little quickly, but in the event that you wanted to go slower, please check out my other Squishmallow DIY tutorials where I really go slow with it and I walk you through the entire thing. I'm just not going to repeat it here again because I've done it already so many times. And I've put the link right here on the top right. And the ear placement and sewing on is the same exact way I just showed you twice before in this video, so you can definitely back up the video and re-watch it as I walk you through it step by step and talk to you about it. And with my stripes in place, I'm going to pin them and actually bring them over to the sewing machine and sew around. And that came out really nice. And my tail has been created and I turned it right side out. And I'm going to put it right on the back piece there. I'm going to sandwich it in between both of the pieces. And I'm going to sew just on that back part. And you saw me before making sure that that is the back of the Squishmallow and not the side. And all of the Squishmallow construction is the same as I've previously shown you in the video. So if you just joined the video at this point or use the timestamp, you can definitely back it up to watch and listen to how I walk you through verbally as well, step by step, on what it is that I'm doing here. This Squishmallow cat is looking adorable. Definitely different and custom for sure. Anyway, I'm going to continue with the same steps for attaching the bottom of the Squishmallow. I've gone ahead and added some of the face details, but I'm going to show you how I add or make the actual whiskers. And you can see a little bit of my stuffing sticking out here, but I just at the end just pull it out and clean it up because some of it does come through. See that? Yep, with the, oh, here we go, with the pulling of the embroidery floss, but I just clean it up at once at the end. So I just made a little knot there, so I secure it in place. And I make a large stitch. And the rest is pretty easy. Now, here is how I made the felt flowers on top. So I cut out some flowers and just some random circles for the centers. And what I like to do is cut these slits right here in between the petals. And if you pull the felt, you can see it's like pliable and it actually changes shape. I love this. You could leave the flower just as it was before. So now with a double threaded needle, I started attaching the center of the flower just for 2 stitches. And now I'm going to attach it to the top or the head of the Squishmallow. And I'm going to go all the way around the center of the flower with a running stitch. But as I'm doing this, I'm grabbing the Squishmallow as well. And then I felt the flower needed just a little bit more cutting into. So notice how just like nicer it looks when I really cut into these petals a bit more. Again, you could leave it as it was before, but I kind of like this. And then I'm going to go around and just trim those petals so they're nice and rounded. And I'm going to repeat the same steps with the other flowers. So here I'm just cutting out a random freehand leaf. But if you can't do that, that's totally fine. Why don't you use the pattern that is part of the extras? And I'm going to sew it on under the flower. And that's it. This flower squishmallow came out adorable. Well, it's a flower cat squishmallow. So here's how to make the bow in the event that you want to add a bow to one of your squishmallows. Bows are just cool. I absolutely love them. So let me show you how to make it. You fold this in half, and what I did is I sewed it with leaving an opening there. I'm trimming the corners, and now I'm going to turn it right side out. I'm going to poke out the corners as well, because I want it to be nice and square. So there goes my chopstick again. And once I have the opening there turned in, I give it a nice press. And then with the bow band, I just give it a really small seam on one end and the same thing on the other end. And now let me show you how I wrap it around the bow. And now I just trim that part, and I am going to just fold over the very ends of that band so it's a nice clean edge, and then with my needle and thread I'm going to just sew it closed. And it's okay if the thread shows, because that showing thread is going to be on the squishmallow. It'll sort of be under the bow, so you won't even see it. So cute, right? I love it. So let me show you how I would attach it. Let's say I wanted to attach it to the squishmallow. I grab some of the squishmallow fabric and I put it through again and grab some of the bow. And I keep repeating this until it's nice and secure. And then with the same exact stitching, I'm going to do some end off stitches. I do like 2 or 3 just to make sure it's securely on. And it's just adorable. Anyway, let me show you how to add some of the other pieces. Let's say this was cut out of fabric. You place one this way and you cut out the other one this way, and that's how you place it onto the front. Same thing as the stripe, that is after you add your ears and close that up, okay? And you can place it anywhere. Who says it needs to go on top? This is your custom squishmallow. Raccoon eyes. Cut 2 and layer them over each other out of felt and place them however you want, and then cut another 2 flipped over that way and place it right there. And that's it. That's how to create these adorable cat squishmallows. So if you really enjoyed this DIY squishmallow video, why don't you also check out my other DIY squishmallow tutorials right up here on the screen. Thanks for watching.